Welcome to the second podcast, hosted by the OnlySpace channel. And today I'm your host, Bob Colbert. So we're continuing our journey to Mars. So the goal here is to gradually colonize Mars over quite a lengthy time. And don't know how long it would take, probably hundreds of years to do so. Um, Now, Elon Musk is purports with his Starship development to be able to colonize within 10 years uh, a million people, bring those to Mars. And he's planning to like do it in waves every 2 years, have 1,000 starships transverse the distance from Earth to Mars on the shortest route, and each starship carried potentially 100 astronauts, and plus supplies and everything to build a colony, and actually eventually a city. So there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. Last podcast is we were talking about terraforming, and we'll continue in this mode of terraforming because it's extremely important. Uh, right now, Mars is completely hostile to human life, plant life, probably animals' life. We haven't found life on Mars, even though we have found precursors and things that may be like fossilization of life. And there may be life on Mars, but it's got to be buried very deep in the interior of Mars that's protected more in a hotter environment, maybe moist environment. So there's also some studies that have been done and we'll cover this in another podcast, where they have found an ocean of water that could potentially be a mile deep, and I would say like similar to like an Atlantic Ocean, Atlantic, yeah. So that would be great. Now, don't get the idea that it's like literally like an ocean of liquid water under all in one. It's probably locked up in the in the rock, in voids and things like that. So it would have to be released somehow to come up. But I'm sure if we were to drill very deep into Mars, we would hit pockets of liquid water, and in that water could be existing life. So that would be wonderful to find that. So today's podcast, we're going to talk about a plant. Now, this plant's obviously will have to be some genetically modifications to it, but there are plants. In this case, it's a moss. Uh, is already on Earth is so extreme that scientists think it could thrive on Mars now. So without any potential genetic modification, but there still may have to be some. So, but anyway, just the fact that there are what we call extremophiles, whether it be a plant species, an animal species, or a bacterium species on Earth that can survive the environments of Mars, is remarkable. So it's a real possibility that we could bring these what they call pioneer, which would be the foundational start to terraform Mars. These would be foundational plants, foundational bacterium, foundational species of animals, and eventually pioneers species of humans. So there may have to be some genetic modifications for us as well to be able to handle radiation, particularly or extreme cold, things like that. So but again, we're going to talk about this plant so extreme, scientists think it could thrive on Mars. So let's go to the in the scene, and I'll show you a video of we're kind of looking for. Oops, there we go. I'll let it leave. So in this case, what you're seeing is astronauts have planted moss plants on Mars. They're trying to create a green field of moss that can generate oxygen and atmospheric gases and nutrients to the soil that would make it more hospitable to growing or terraforming the Mars surface. So that's kind of the goal here. And in this particular case, this plant is an extremophile pioneer type plant that can already handle this type of an environment. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what you see in this image, you see an astronaut woman that's planting new moss plants onto Mars, and in the background there, you probably already see some moss plants that have been planted in an earlier period of time, and they seem to be thriving, growing a little bit bigger than these. These are obviously probably have been genetically modified. I'll show that here. So in either Earth lab or on Mars itself. So I would think that we would have both. At start, you would have like Mars type plants that are developed, and then see these plants. Now these in particular are the cacti plants, and cacti is another desert type plant that can survive extreme environments and such. So yeah. So let's do a little reading on it. So let me go to the screen capture. So this plant is so extreme, scientists think it could thrive on Mars. And this was presented by Jess Cockerill on July 21st, 2024. So mosses, and this is a picture of it, and it's called Syntrichia caninervis is the plant moss species. So mosses are among Earth's great terraformers, turning barren rock into fertile soils. And now a team of scientists is proposing these non-vascular plants could do the same on Mars. And whether we should introduce life from Earth onto Mars or our red neighbor is another question. We don't have a great track record with this on our own planet. But if we do decide it's worth messing with the soil on Mars to create a second home for us Earthlings, ecologist Xiaoshuang Li and his colleagues at the Chinese Academy of Science have a candidate or a pioneer species they think could do the trick. Earth's surface was once extremely inhospitable to life, but that didn't stop a group of organisms called bryophytes, which today include the mosses, liverworts, hornworts, from wrenching themselves out of the fertile safety of the oceans and in search of new horizons. The success of these terrestrial trailblazers hinged on their ability to harness and digest the nutrients that seep from or flow over rock while surviving utterly hostile conditions that would reduce other living things to death. But they did spread across Earth's rocky surface frontier. They created soils, which did pave the way for other less hardcore life forms to gradually step foot on the dry land. The genetic gumption continues to serve mosses across the world, and the researchers think we could harness their inbuilt talents to colonize Mars, laying the groundwork for other less durable life forms, like crops. Unlike the luscious forest mosses you might be picturing, which have it pretty easy compared to their ancestors, the Syntrichia caninervis is committed to upholding a severely frugal way of life. It thrives in the deserts of China and the U.S., along with the icy mountains of Pamir, Tibet, Middle East, Antarctica, and the circumpolar regions of our planet. The Gurbantungu Desert in northwest China is a hub for the species S. caninervis, which grows more densely here than anywhere else in the world, despite temperatures that range from minus 40 C to 65 C or minus 40 F to 149 degree F Fahrenheit, and a relative humidity that can get down to 1.4%. Li and his colleagues put this moss to the test and pushed the cannabis out of his extraordinarily broad comfort zone is no easy feat. In lab, in the lab, they tested the plant's responses to and recovery from extreme dehydration, prolonged freezing, and in this case, testing was from minus 80 degrees C for 3 or 5 years and minus 196 C for 15 or 30 days. Radiation at doses of 500 to 16,000 GY and Mars-like conditions in the Chinese Academy of Sciences Planetary Atmospheres Simulation Facility. In the Mars simulation, the plants were subjected to pressures of around 650 pascals, similar to 680 to 790 pascals on Earth. At night, the temperature was minus 60 C, and during the day, 20 C, which is equivalent to conditions on Mars in equatorial to mid latitude regions. They also simulated the atmospheric gas composition and the ultraviolet radiation levels to be expected or closer there on Mars. Dehydration was for S. caninervis a walk in the park, and in the extreme cold, it shrugged. All of the frozen plants regenerated after defrosting, with plants that were dehydrated prior to freezing recovering much faster than their soggy peers. In the face of radiation levels of 50 GY that would kill humans, S. caninervis didn't even blink an eye. At 500 GY, its growth even seemed to speed up. Mosses that had been dehydrated and then exposed to marsh-like conditions were then able to act as if they never happened to them just after 30 days of recovery. Their hydrated counterparts took a little longer to recover, but still lived to tell the tale. Although there's still a long ways to go to create self-sufficient habitats on other planets, we did demonstrate the great potential of S. caninervis as a pioneer plant for growth on Mars. Researchers write. Looking to the future, we expect that this promising moss could be brought to Mars or the Moon to further test the possibility of plant colonization and growth in outer space. And even if moss on Mars turns out to be a terrible idea, the fact that S. caninervis can turn totally arid land into living skin, even after surviving such extreme conditions, offers some hope for life on our own planet, which is, it seems, more resilient than we sometimes give it credit. Now, this research was published in the Innovation, so full credit goes to them. All right. So, So I'll re-show the video again, just to kind of get an idea of what we're doing. So we're trying to take a pioneer plant, which is a moss plant, plant it on Mars. It may need some genetic manipulation, but we're going to try to plant it in mass on Mars to help terraform the Mars terrain and ultimately the atmosphere to make it habitable for human habitation. So in the video fire, so this is what we're doing, trying to create a moss field. So here you see the astronaut. She's planting uh, some newly grown moss that was probably in a genetic lab. And here's some previously planted moss that looks to be bigger. So this could have been done at a little bit earlier time. Seems to be thriving. So we're just the plan is just to plant all over the place here and try to get it to grow. Yeah. And then you would see most likely both on Earth as well as at a Mars laboratory, laboratories that are dedicated to extremophile plants, extremophile animals, extremophile bacterium to help it survive on the Martian atmosphere and the Martian environment in general. Well, thank you for joining us for the podcast too. Hope you have a great Saturday. It's beautiful outside in Los Angeles today. Be about 94 degrees. So it's starting to move toward fall. We just did the Olympics. We've got football coming up. And we also have the postseason of the baseball coming up. So, yeah, and an election. So, a lot of things on the horizon coming up. But I hope you enjoy us next week. We'll slowly get it to where it's on time, but it's close to the publishing time. So y'all have a great weekend. Catch us next week on the Mars Report podcast, streaming on OnlySpace YouTube channel. Take care, my friends. See you later.